All right, so
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
all right, welcome in everybody. My name's Luann. I'm a trainer here at the Big Hairy Dog. We're going to cover a couple of different options that you can use mobile POS with Retail Pro. And I don't know if you heard me earlier. If you have questions, I only have 4 or 5 of you in the broadcast today. So if you want to raise your hand, drop questions in the chat room, anything like that, I'll try to address those as we go along. Usually this webinar lasts about an hour, and I'll try to answer whatever questions we can for your particular situations if you wish. So what we're intending on covering today is what your mobile POS options are for Retail Pro. V8, V9, and Prism. All right, so just to give you a question already, hang on a sec. Hi, Nicole. All right, what we're going to do here is cover the products, the Foundry Logic product and the Prism product, and try to outline the differences between them, what devices they run on, what options you have as far as credit card processing, that type of thing. All right, so I'm going to change my slide here. All right, so first of all, Foundry Logic is a third-party company that's been working with Retail Pro for quite some time now. Okay, and their product runs on Apple, either iPod, iPad. I've even seen it run on iPhone, although you're not going to run mobile POS on iPhone for a couple of reasons, credit cards being one of them. Okay, but Foundry Logic makes 2 products. They make a mobile POS product, which is going to be the focus of our discussion today, and they also make what they call their inventory module, which is a product that you can scan items and then a list of items and then download it into Retail Pro, either for physical inventory, transfer between stores. You can even scan a list of items and download it into a transaction, POS transaction on Retail Pro. That's what we call line busting. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Costco. If you go to Costco and there's a big long line and somebody comes along from the back of the line, scans all your items and basically suspends or puts on hold the transaction. That's called line busting. And then they recall it at the cash register when you're ready to check out and finish. So line busting is a capability that we have on both Foundry Logic products, the mobile POS, and the difference between line busting and true mobile POS is with the mobile POS, you can actually complete the transaction on the mobile device, i.e. take payment, list the customer, email the receipt, print the receipt, all of that. You can complete the whole POS transaction on the device. A line buster is just a way to make a list of items, transfer that list to a POS transaction in Retail Pro, and then complete the transaction in Retail Pro. Both Foundry Logic products are version 8 and version 9 compatible. Okay, so that means that if you're still running version 8, you could use either one of these products on an Apple device and complete mobile POS transactions that will then transfer over into Retail Pro, either version 8 or version 9. Okay, so that's the we'll cover that mobile POS in a couple seconds. The second part of the webinar, we're going to be talking about Retail Pro's Prism product, which is a browser-based program that Retail Pro is putting out that works in conjunction with V9. It does not work in conjunction with V8. At this point in time, you do have to have version 9 Retail Pro somewhere in the mix for this, because that's where the item creation happens. That's where you do the vouchers. That's where you do the back office thing. And the mobile POS part of this is because you can put the Prism product. It's a browser-based product, so you can put it on, you can access it from a browser on Windows. You can access it from a browser on Apple products, right? And so I'm going to show you later, both a, like a full-size browser and how it looks when you run it on like a little, I got a teeny weeny little iPod here, and I'll show you how that works. Okay, but this product, basically you can cut across a lot of different platforms. You can run it on a full-size desktop computer with all the peripherals if you want. And the POS part of this has been out for some time. And we have it in operation in places, right? So, we're comfortable with showing what it can do in contrast to the Foundry Logic product that we've had in place for a number of years now. But again, only version 9 compatible. You do have to be on version 9 in order to use Prism. All right, so moving on, we're first going to talk about Foundry Logic, right? So what I'm going to do here is I've got this slide here that kind of outlines what I'm going to do, but I'm going to minimize my slide here. Okay, and I'm going to show you what it actually looks like on a product, on an iPod here, right? So I've got this little connector thing, and then I got to connect it. 1 second here. Okay, and then it's a trial version of this. We're trying this out. We don't know if we like it well enough to pay for it yet, so bear with us here while I get this connected up. There we go. All right, so let's go back. All right, so this is the receipts screen. Once you log into the Foundry Logic mobile POS, okay, you see a list of previous receipts. Most of the time we set this so that every time you log in, you get a clean screen. You're not going to see stuff from back in May or June or whatever. I've left these on here purposefully so we can see what it looks like when we have a list of transactions, because usually we don't do more than 1 or 2 with our demo here. All right, so a couple of things you might notice on here. This first transaction, 90008, that was a completed transaction. The check mark tells me it was a completed transaction. The one here with the little notepad here is not a completed sale, okay, but it is something. It is something that is. Hang on 1 second here. There we go. Yeah. Okay, it is something that we can start on the mobile POS and then put on hold, and that will transfer over to the version 9. Okay, and I'll show you that as we go through the demo. But the idea here is you have people that wander around the floor with a little iPod. They can look customers up. They can scan or enter items, right? And if it's like a sales order type of a situation, you can put the transaction on hold and it'll transfer over to version 9. Okay? And then you can make a sales order out of it or finish the transaction over in version 9. So that's what this little icon is, right? All right. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to show you a few of the features in actually entering sales on this little device. You see 2 icons down here at the bottom. You see that's the customer icon, and this is the item lookup icon. So I'm not in a transaction right now, okay? But if I wanted to start one, I could start either by hitting the new button up here in the corner, okay? Or I could hit the customer button, find a customer, select a customer, and that would automatically put me in a transaction. Same with the items, right? So if I am out here, right, I'm not in a transaction, and I'm dealing with the customer, I'm going to actually click on this customer icon right here. Here's my list of customers, and I can search using the little search box up here at the top. Okay, or I can scroll, right, and find my customer. I'm going to pick on Sally Jones right now, right? So if this is my right customer and I select it, that's automatically going to start a transaction for Sally Jones. So I like to show people that because that is a really quick way of using this application to get into a sale quickly. Likewise, right, if I back up here and I hit the little icon down here, this little tray icon, that's the item search, right? So if I'm out on the floor and if you're dealing with like furniture or something like that where you need pricing or whatever, then you pick it off the list or scan the barcode. You've got your pricing and all your colors and everything here. And if the customer says, yeah, write that up for me, right? All you have to do is select an item, right? And it automatically starts the transaction for you. Okay, so it's just a little shortcutty thing that I found really easy to use. Okay, and from this point, you could, if I did not actually put this on a customer, I can add a customer by hitting this little icon with the exclamation point on it, because it's saying, hey, dummy, you didn't collect the customer info, right? I can add more items, right? And the other things that you can do in here are, discounting this item. Okay, is I select it, and you can see down here, I've got another screen where I can take a discount. Okay. Come on now. Okay, discount and back. Oops. Reason code, right? You're familiar with that. Oh, I guess this employee doesn't get to take discounts. Anyway, you can edit the transaction here similarly to the way you can do in Retail Pro. Change the quantity, change the discount. Yeah. Okay. You're going to let me out here? Let me see if I can put another item on here. Okay, put another item on here and select. And yeah, you appear to be past that. All right, so other things when you're looking for items, right? If I search for an item, I just want to show you some of the things that are available. This is all of the sizes, right? So this is kind of equivalent of the style grid. In version 9, you can scroll through all the sizes and colors if this thing belongs to a style. There is also, you see down at the bottom where it says image. I don't have any images loaded on here, but you could load images so that if you're looking at really unique or really small merchandise, you can have images loaded. I do know that we have several of those stores that sell Pandora, right? All those little beads, and they're, slightly different, and it's really hard to tell the difference, and they're really hard to tag, right? So they load all their images in it. So if they're looking for something, right, they search through here, verify that the image is the right thing, right, and sell it that way, right? So that's a thing that you can do, right? So you get everything listed on here, discounted if necessary. The other thing that I can show you is down here at the bottom, this little menu icon right down here. That's how you get into the receipt header information, right? Change the taxability, change the price level. If I haven't already selected a customer, I can select a customer in here. So you can get to the comments, right? You can get to the POS flags, the fees. So all that stuff that's normally at the bottom of a version 8 or 9 transaction is under that menu, right? And if you have defined comments or defined POS flags, not sure that this one actually does, yeah, it does, then you can pick them from the menu, because all that stuff downloads from Retail Pro. All right, so you get everything you want in the transaction. Checking out, okay, is this button right up here at the top, right? So checkout. In this scenario here, I've got a cash button at the bottom and I've got a credit card button at the bottom. I don't have this hooked up to credit cards, but essentially if you were going to tender a credit card, you would click on this icon here down at the bottom, okay, and basically you would swipe your card on a device that I'm going to show you in a couple of minutes. And finish the transaction, right? In the demo here, usually we just use the cash button. With an iPod, you're not going to have a cash drawer directly connected to this. So A lot of people do turn off the cache, or you can have a separately locked cache drawer or something like that, but there isn't a hardwire or wireless cache drawer situation going on here at all. All right, so if I tender it cash, I'm just going to click OK button here. I've completed or satisfied that whole sale. I'm going to hit the finish button. Okay, and here we've got a choice here. We can email, right? We can print. We can do one or the other or both, right? So this is all built into the Foundry Logic program. It's also built into the Prism product, just so you're aware. If you haven't picked a customer, it doesn't matter. You could still enter an email and email the receipt. You could pick a customer off the list, somebody that actually has an email, okay, and it will autofill that. Okay, so I'm selecting the customer, and see it'll autofill that customer's email in there if it's on the customer account. I don't actually want to email this. I'm just going to go through to the print, right? Continue anyway, yes. And this is where if you had a Bluetooth printer, okay, or if you had a regular hardwired receipt printer hooked up to your V9 that we had shared out over Retail Pro, you should be able to print a receipt on that. So either one of those options are available, right? And now I'm back to my idle transaction screen. Transaction number 9009, right, is a transaction that I just created. If I'm going to bounce my Retail Pro up here, and I'm going to go to my receipt screen, okay, and you'll see just that quick, that shows up in Retail Pro. All right, so from here on out, right, if I needed to do something with this, like reverse it or, anything like that, it's in Retail Pro 9. Okay, you can still see it on your screen here, right, but there's no editing this after it's been sent. That's the checkbox means it's been sent. You're done with it on this side. You got to do anything, it's over into Retail Pro. All right. I wanted to show you one thing with putting things on hold, right, and show you how to deal with that in Retail Pro. So let me go back to my Sally Jones person. So I'm going to click on my little head icon, right? I'm going to scroll down until I find Sally Jones, or I'm going to search for her or something. Sally Jones, there we go. Okay, so we're going to pick Sally Jones. Come on, Sally Jones, let's go. There we go. We're going to select it. All right, so I'm going to list a couple items. I'm just picking them off the list here and select that item. Okay, and then when I go to check out, there's a button down at the bottom. See this little arrow button, right? That's the download button. If I click on that, okay, that transaction, right, I have a choice: send as a held receipt or create a store credit. Okay, I'm going to send as a held receipt, right, to Retail Pro. Then when I come, or not, I may not have that configured. Okay, let's see. Am I going back? All right, I may not have that configured. Let's see if anything happens in Retail Pro here. Yeah, all right, so I got some kind of error there. But what should happen is that should come over from a Prism, show up on my helds, and then I can take it off hold, turn it into a sales order, and do whatever I need to do to it over in Retail Pro. But it's, we're done with it on the actual Foundry Logic or iPad, right? There's no editing this or doing anything to it after it's gone over there. All right, so you can add new customers here, right? If a customer doesn't exist, you can add them. All that customer information will go over to Retail Pro. There's some, you'd have a separate shipping address. Those functional things are in Retail Pro, or in the Foundry Logic product, right? So from there, right, I need to show you the different ways that this can reside in hardware-wise, right? So this is a slide that shows an iPod right, which is what I've been using here and displaying on the screen. There's a couple of different devices here that take different sizes of iPods. It's not a device that you can get for just any iPod. They're specialized iPods because it's a physical footprint, right? So there are some limitations. Okay, but essentially it's a sled that you slide the iPod into, and it has a scanner. So this little guy, the scanner is right here, and then this slot right here is the stripe reader. Okay, this is a slightly different model, but it's the same same idea, right? There's a built-in credit card swiper, and then there's a barcode scanner as well. So when I was typing in items or selecting off the list, you would point this thing with the iPod in it at a barcode, scan the barcode, and that would enter the item instead of you picking it off a list or typing the number. Okay, and then when you're ready to check out, right, if you're using a credit card, basically you pick credit card and you swipe this credit card, and these days, right, you don't even have to sign anymore. So the rules changed last month as far as American Express, MasterCard, and Visa. I don't know if everybody's aware of that, but if you're using a Cayenne PIN pad device, it's no longer prompting your customer for a signature. If they have a chip card, right, and they put the chip card in, the credit card rules are that we're charging that customer and we don't need a signature anymore. So if you're not aware of that change, that happened within the last couple of weeks. Okay, so these are the hardware scenarios for Foundry Logic and Apple devices, right? And so the next slide explains a little bit about the credit card processing, and the mobile POS and Retail Pro 9 and 8 for that matter, all of them are using, if you're using credit cards with Retail Pro, you're using a Cayenne processor, right? Whether you're using a PIN pad or you're just using it, opening up a little window and typing in the numbers, you're all going through Cayenne. They have exclusive rights with Retail Pro for credit card processing. You might have a different, actually, they're the default gateway, right? You might have a different processor, right? So you might have First Data, you might have one or two. Cayenne can also be your processor, and that's all PCI compliant. That's what all the hoorah's been for the last 3 years at least. And Retail Pro has worked very hard to try to keep themselves current and in compliance with PCI. And the other thing about your Foundry Logic mobile POS, right, is that you can use, you can use your existing POS hardware, i.e. you have a desktop in your same network. You can send your print jobs to that receipt printer, Bixalon, Star, what have you, print it out, and then you have a hard receipt. Some people use a Bluetooth printer with their Foundry Logic devices, and some of them also use them with their Prism. That is also an option. But all the standard hardware that's attached to your Retail Pro 9 is also accessible, except for the cash drawer. All right, so now this is just a little bit of an architecture for the Foundry Logic products, right? The Foundry Logic has a Retail Mobile Manager piece of software that's installed on a V9 machine, and that has to be within the same Wi-Fi network as the device. Okay, so there are certain limitations to that. It's physical store, right? You have a V9 computer somewhere that's running this mobile manager, right? It's a service that's reachable by wireless mobile devices. Okay, one good thing with the Foundry Logic product is you can have multiple devices and they don't require that you license a Retail Pro seat, right? Which can be expensive, but the mobile devices actually have their own license, for Retail Pro, and but they do not take a Retail Pro seat. So you can have one computer that runs Retail Pro and one seat so that you can run V9 on that computer, and then you can have multiple, excuse me, multiple mobile devices on iPods that are separately licensed. All right. So we're going to go, excuse me. So now we're going to move on to Prism. Right, Prism is a Retail Pro product. So that's the main difference. Okay, it is currently a layer on top of version 9. So you do have to have version 9 somewhere in the mix. Okay, it does not work with version 8. Right, so this is exclusively a version 9 product, but it is the mobile part of this component is that you can put it on a laptop, you can put it on a tablet, Android tablet, you can put it on an Apple device. Okay, and so all of those work because everything's browser based. Right, so what I'm going to do here is minimize this. Okay. And show you my Prism screen. All right, so this is, I'm on actually on a desktop here, right? So I've got a full monitor sized thing where I can ring up transactions. I'm going to show you what the opening screen looks like. Here's my opening screen where I have different things that I can do. All of the things you see here are basically POS based, right? So customers, Xing and Zing out, you know, checking in and out. All of this is mobile POS. Prism does have some back office functionality, but we're choosing not to deal with that in this webinar. Okay, so I'm just going to go through a basic sale, new transaction, right? Item lookup. So you're scanning the item, typing in the item. I'm just typing in items. Oh, maybe not. Where's my items? That's an item, right? So you ring up items, and these are your modifying thing here. You can change the quantity, right? Remove the item, void the item, leaves it on there without and changing the quantity to 0. Taking a discount is here, right? So you can take a discount by amount, change the price, or whatever. Okay, so all of your modifiers are right here. So if you're ringing up multiple items, basically it's this, right? Item, 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 item. Okay, over here, right, if you're adding a customer, if I use this little pull down right here, this shows me what criteria I'm going to search by, right? If I leave it this way, I can do name. So I put in a handful of customers here. One of them is new customer, right? So that finds the customer I'm looking for. Okay, that customer's details are here if I needed to edit them. But let's just say I'm going to tender this, right? So I hit the tender button. Okay, it defaults to whatever we tell it to default to. We can have it default to credit card if that's your primary form of tender. I have it defaulting to cash because I don't have credit cards set up. But if you need to change the tender type, that's this button down here where it says tender type. These are my available tenders. So if I'm changing to check, credit, or debit, or whatever, I can select those. Okay, but for the most part, we want it to default to whatever you take most often. Okay, and I'm just going to tell it I'm taking the even amount, right? Print and update, same terminology as Retail Pro, it's V9 itself. All right, and so here I've set up this so that it automatically previews everything, so it's easy to show you on the screen. This does not have to happen. You can go straight to the printer. You can go straight to print and email. You can go straight to email. Depends on how you want to set this up. Okay, and you can set all these defaults so that you don't have to answer a bunch of questions. Okay, so this is what a typical receipt looks like. Should look very familiar for any of you who are in V9. Okay, and from this screen, I could print it, I could email it, I could do both. Okay, if I chose to email it, and I had an email for a customer already, it would appear, or I could just type it in. Okay, and all of that stuff is all built in Prism and or Foundry Logic, the email capability. In version 9, it's not built in at all, if any of you are familiar with that. Okay, so that's an advantage to having this mobile POS thing. Your email capability comes along with it. All right, so that was a basic transaction, and so I wanted to do a couple of things, right? Look at the customer list, right? So if I say, show me customer last name, I have numerous customers with the last name customer, so it's going to show me this screen right here. Oops. With whatever pertinent details I've chosen to show. This happens to be the phone number. I just made it short so that it would be easy for me to pick a customer off the list. Okay, you can tell the system to search for a phone number, right? If I do this and I put the phone number in, right, either all of it or some of it, it will find that customer. I only have one that is listed. It will show me what phone number it found, right? So you've got a little bit of flexibility here on looking things up and making sure you have the right customer. If you wanted to create a new customer, it's simple. You just click that new button and enter the new customer. All right, searching for items if you don't have the barcode, a little harder. In the Foundry Logic program, it's really super simple. Okay, in here, right, if you know part of the description 1 or 2 or items or whatever, you can type that in. Oh, I guess that's not going to play nice with me. Let's just go to advanced lookup. Right, and so here, right, I can choose how I want to search. I've just chosen this because what I want to do is just see everything, right? So if I have one parameter and I choose this, now I can scroll through these and look for them. If I know part of what the thing has in it, so like description 1 here has jacket in it, I can say I want to see description 1. I'm going to cancel this. I'm going to say jacket. Okay, show me everything with jacket. I probably have to do this. Jacket. There we go. So these are all the jackets. I can select multiple of these. So that's something that you can't do in either of the, like you can't do that in V9 unless you go to choose edit, and it doesn't work as smoothly as this. But I could sell more than one thing here, right? And hit select item and bring them all back into my transaction at the same time. Okay, which is kind of cool. All right, so I'm ringing up items, right? If I wanted to, if I oopsed and got this one on here more than once, I can highlight this and hit remove. Okay, the other thing that I usually show people is how to do a return in here because it's pretty slick, right? If you're in this transaction, you can hit this return. So you can see the sale is yellow right here. If I click on this, I'm just going to set the next item that I put in as a return. So that's set item type. Okay, and then I need to go look up an item. And it's asking me, since I'm doing a return, do I want to go look up my original transaction? I'm going to say no for this demonstration. I just want to return this thing. Right, so you can see where it says type return right here. Right, that's the indication that that thing has been returned. This is a sale. This is a return. So that's how you tell what that is. Right, so it, as in with 8 or 9, right, it figures out how much the difference is. I'm going to tender it. This time I'm going to change to a credit card, okay, because I don't have it hooked up to anything, but I can say, oh, discover, why not? Take it, okay, print and update, okay, and preview so you can see what's going on here, right? So here's my item that was returned right here. Here's my items that were sold, and then my total and on through the bottom of the transaction. All right. Also, I don't know if I pointed this out, but with both of these products, if once you finish a transaction, it automatically starts a new one, right? So in version 9 or 8, well, not at 8, but in 9, that's an option where you can tell it automatically start a new transaction. In here, it's just going to assume, right? So this thing is really tuned for transaction, 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 transaction. Not a lot of extra stuff in between. But as with the Foundry Logic, you could cancel right out of the new transaction, and in here you don't automatically go back to a list view. That doesn't exist like it does in 8. But if you click on this options right here, here's transaction lookup, customer lookup. So I'm not actually in a transaction. I can go do some research here if I need to. Right. So I'll just show you the transaction lookup really quick. We've got filters. I'm not going to bother with the filters. I'm just going to say search everything that's month to date. Right. So here's my transactions. If I needed to pull up a transaction from yesterday, I can highlight it, view the transaction. Now I'm looking at this transaction. Copy it. Probably reverse it if you wanted to when you're done looking at it. Basically, you can just hit new and start a new transaction. Okay. All right. The other thing that I want to mention is in Prism, if you put a transaction on hold, it stays in Prism. Okay. Sales orders in Prism are kind of embedded in the sales receipt process. So this button right here that says order, right? If I change that, okay, this changes this to some kind of order. I think I only have customer order set up. That's why it's not giving me the change. But what I can do is list an item. Okay, this is a customer order now, right? I can sell things and put things on order in the same transaction, okay, which is a foreign concept for anybody who's been using Retail Pro for a long time. This is the way Prism does it. Okay, it needs to be attached to a customer, of course. So let's get a customer up here. All right, so this is a customer order. If I click sale, right, and I add something to the transaction, that's a sale. We're going to collect money for that because if they want to go home with it, but for this, if they want to go home with it, but this is an order, and we have our choice of collecting all the money for that or not. Okay, so that's how you create an order or a layaway or whatever. And this is the deposit screen where we can configure minimum deposits like you can in version 9, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not going to put a deposit on this. I just want to pay for the item that they're taking home today. Right, so I can do that. Okay, print and update. Okay, and then I want to show you what the receipt looks like. Right, so this is what they're taking home today, the one that says sale. This one that says order, that's the on order. So they just paid for their one transaction there. All right, so that's the way orders work in Prism right now. Okay, it's just a little different than the way you're using them in V9. Now, that transaction is going to, go over to Retail Pro, and in Retail Pro, if you're going to complete the sales order over there, that is currently a possibility. It didn't used to be. Okay, so just briefly, I'm going to show you what Prism looks like on a little bitty. Right, so hang on a sec here. Let me open this back up. Okay, and go to here. All right, so this is my Prism screen that shows different types of devices that you can put Prism on. So I've got a full-size desktop screen, which is what I was just demoing you. I've got a couple of tablets, right? I got an iPod. I'm going to show you real briefly what the screen on the iPod looks like, okay, with the transaction, just so you can see what the difference is. This device over here on the right is the Genius Mini, is what they call it. So that's the Cayenne device. It's a wireless piece of equipment with a card reader, right? So Prism talks to this, okay, wirelessly, and this talks to the internet or Cayenne, over the internet. It gets an authorization and sends it back to Prism. So that's what this device is. So think of your Cayenne pin pad, right, in your hand in a little device. You can also use a hardwired Cayenne pin pad. If you have one of those on your network, you can the Prism can send a request for authorization through a hardwired Cayenne pin pad as well. All right. So next, I want to show you what the little bitty screen looks like. One sec here. Thing goes to sleep. All right, maybe later. All right. So we're going to connect back up. Okay. All right, so I'm going to flip over to my Prism demo that's on Safari, right? So this is what the receipt screen looks like, right? I'm going to hit this little Prism icon and just show you real briefly. Oops. There we go. Hit the Prism icon. So this is the menu, the Prism menu. From here, I can look up a customer or look up another transaction or whatever. But I'm actually in a transaction. That's oops. Well, that's not where I wanted to go. Hang on a sec. Right, here's where I wanted to go. Or not. Here's where I wanted to be. Okay, so here, right, with this kind of device, right, you can have a scanner attached, you can type in numbers, you can do a lookup. So, hang on a sec here, 406, and done. All right, so there's an item. I just looked it up using the number. Right, and so you can see you're a little more constrained with what you can see and do on the little bitty devices. But if you have something that's a reasonably fast throughput with a simple, fast way to ring things up, right? It's really small, fits in the palm of your hand, but I wouldn't getting through a transaction. I'm hitting the tender button here. Right, taking cash. Okay, so the lead through on here is the same, right? I'm going to print, right, and it's going to preview, okay, and or automatically print, right? So same capabilities here, email and print, one or both. And if you're using this and you're taking credit cards, you're probably going to be using that Genius device that I showed you earlier, unless you have a fixed device, right? So it's small, but contains the same functionality, and as the full screen POS, it's just designed for fitting in the palm of your hand. All right. All right, so the next thing we talk about here is how Prism's deployed, right? So in my screen here, it's a little fuzzy, but I hope you can see it okay. Prism has multiple ways that you can use it from a network standpoint. So first is I've got a Retail Pro here, this one on the left here, and that it polls over the internet to Prism POS devices, whether that be a desktop, a laptop, a tablet. Okay, and Retail Pro or Prism is loaded directly on these devices. Okay, still browser-based, but you have data here residing here. The next actually you don't have data residing here. You're going all the way back to the server over the network every time. Okay, this one in the middle, right? We have a local install of either Prism or version 9 with locally accessing tablets, iPods, computers, laptops, or whatever. So slight difference here. This is a standalone here, so you're not dependent on wireless or internet to be constantly connected back to your server. Okay, so if you're dealing with remote locations, this might be a better, more reliable option. The last option is having a, instead of having a Retail Pro install in the store, you have a MySQL database that collects the data and then passes it up to the Retail Pro 9. So in this, this type of installation, there's no version 9 in this local group of computers. Right, all the version 9 stuff is done up here. Right, so you would have no back office functionality, no POs, no vouchers, no creating items, none of that stuff. But if that's not important, this might be a way to go. So there's multiple flavors of how we can do this and set it up, multiple devices that we can run Prism on. Okay, and Prism is constantly in development, so they do have full-featured Prism in the pipeline, so vouchers, POs, markdowns, all of that stuff is coming, right? But right now, today, mobile POS is the product that's ready to go. All right. So the one thing that we do also talk about is at the end of this is what mobile POS is not, right? So some of you who've been around with us for a while, you might have taken physical inventory with some of our rental units, or you may have purchased yourself some of these devices that we show here, right? On the right side, we're going to start with those. These are scanners that we use basically for physical inventory or recording transfers and vouchers and receiving and things like that, right? The software that goes on them is called, if it goes on this Janum one that's kind of in the middle, oops, right here. Hang on, no clicking. Okay, so this Janum that's in the middle, right here, that has a piece of software called SmartScan on it. That's a Retail Pro product. It enables you to take a physical inventory, scan a list of items for receiving, dump it into Retail Pro. This one that's on the far right is an old school 20-year-old scanner, still working, still, we are still renting them, but all it does is make a list of items and then dump it into Retail Pro for physical inventory or receiving via a serial cable connection. Okay, so on the left over here, there's two devices that run Foundry Logic software, older versions of Foundry Logic software. They do not run mobile POS. They run the inventory module, which allows you to take physical inventory, scan in a transfer, scan in lists of items that you're receiving in, okay, and then download those to Retail Pro. So we just like to outline what's different about an inventory scanner or a line buster as opposed to true mobile POS, right? True mobile POS has the capability of totally finishing the transaction, including taking credit cards and getting an authorization. And line busting is just a list of items that you dump into Retail Pro so that you can alter that or finish the transaction in Retail Pro. Okay, so that's pretty much the content of our webinar. We are back this up all the way to the beginning, right? Right. So the intent of this webinar is to give you a little bit of information about what the mobile POS options are. People ask us about it all the time. If you're interested in in pursuing it. You can reach sales at bighairydog.com. You can also look at our website. This this webinar is being recorded and will be published out on our YouTube channel, so you can review it anytime. Those of you who signed up and showed up are going to get an email connecting you back to this if you wanted to review it. If you're interested in getting pricing, anything like that, sales department can help you out with that. If you have questions after this webinar about the capabilities or anything like that, please feel free to give us a call or send us an email, and we'll try to help you out. So somebody raised their hand. Brian, hang on. Oh, Brian took his hand down. All right, so apologize if Brian, are you back? Questions? Question. Yeah, not showing up in the question pane, right? Okay, thanks, David. David's hanging up. Brian, did you have a question? Because I think I saw your hand raised, but then when I click on it, I don't get anything. All right, so let me see if I can unmute you, Brian. Hang on.
Hello?
Can you hear me, Brian?
Yes, I can hear you.
Hey! So what's your question?
The question is, on the Prism, can you check the inventory from